So I'm not saying like I created it for everyone everywhere, but it worked for us. And one of the things is people do not buy SEO. Cold outreach is like, it's basically essentially about a script. If you come up with the right script, then you will unlock the key to riches. But rather than trying to split test images and copies, just like one fucking great hook will do more damage than like 50 mediocre ads. I promise you, just try it. Holy shit, my fine folks. After what feels like a little bit of an eternity away from you guys, we are back. Last weekend was a travel day. I flew to Canada for my mom's celebration of life, and yesterday was Ilka's birthday, so I took a little day off. We went glamping. We were in the middle of nowhere doing some glamorous camping. It's like camping, but you still have a nice place with a bed. We had a little kind of makeshift jacuzzi and some real toilets, but you know, like camping, you're in the middle of nowhere, you're not around anybody, it's quiet, it's peaceful, it's naturey, no phones, no computers, none of any of that stuff. So excited to be back with you guys. I've missed you guys. Feel like I said, it feels like an eternity away. A couple quick announcements before we get rock and roll. And thing number one, which is for those of you guys who've been interested in the revenue share deal, I've had a couple of really smart questions about it, like, can you do it over and over with clients? Yes, you can. And then secondly, I'm blanking on the other question, so maybe we'll come back to it later. But if you guys are interested, let me actually just put a link for you guys who are interested in that. I guess I'll have to dig it up after. I'll put a link for you guys in the comments below at the end of this video for those of you guys who are interested in the revenue share deals, because they're amazing and they're awesome and there are no upside on what you can actually accomplish with clients. Secondly, for those of you guys who are interested in claiming those last few spots for the Wolfpack Mastermind, you can go to beyondagencyprofits.com/Wolfpack. And I'm working on some really amazing things behind the scenes for our people, is like bringing a whole accountability stuff so people get stuff done, as well as bringing in a team of virtual assistants who actually help you implement the ideas. So like there'll be a done for you aspect in it in the near future of actually like getting stuff done. I'm super stoked about that because I love you guys and I love seeing you guys win. And I just think it's a really smart way of doing stuff. So anyways, a little bit enough about me. Let's get into you guys. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Finn proudly brings to you our one day late weekly Q&A. Good to see you guys again. All right, let's start with Raul. It says, I'm planning to use SEO audits to get clients. How do you convince them to verify on GSC to do a free audit without Ahrefs or SEMRush? Here's the deal, Raul. I just want to say this because I see a lot of people using like a variation of this strategy. I, at least in my world, I invented that strategy like 10 years ago. Although back in those days, I used a program called Jing made by Camtasia. It was before Loom. It was like Loom of the old days. I'm sure there are other people who thought of the same idea. So I'm not saying like I created it for everyone everywhere, but it worked for us. And one of the things is people do not buy SEO. Okay. SEO is a hammer. They are buying problems that you solve and results you create. So you always want to take your SEO audit and tie it to something meaningful. So there's a huge difference between I'm going to do an SEO audit for a personal injury lawyer, say for example, versus I'm going to do an SEO audit to show you how to get the big cases. Okay, so it's the big cases, the result part of that they want. So be careful in like promising making the SEO about SEO, because they don't care. You always got to constantly tie it. If you fix this, you will get this result. Always tie it to like something they want in their world or a problem that it will solve. So for example, like I see this all the time where people sell like, we'll get you more reviews. You know what people want? A problem they want solved is they're sick and tired of people calling them up on the phone and saying, how much is it? And then they say, okay, I'll call you back, and they hang up. And when they have more reviews, people are more like pre-sold. And so they say, okay, I'll buy it. And so just that alone, like eliminating that phone call, is more of what they'll pay for. So the reason I tell you that is pick a niche of people, figure out what those niche of people want, and tie your SEO audits to that result or that problem solved, and watch, they will work better. So like if I just do like, hey, in a practical matter, if I go to a personal injury lawyer, I go, here's your SEO audit, and here's your rankings, and here's your Google, and here's your H1 tags, and here's your scorecard out of 100, their level of interest will be like 3 out of 10. But if I say, hey, I was doing a deep dive and I wanted to see how you guys rank for getting the big cases. I noticed, firstly, you have problems with your title tags. If you don't have title tags that are about the big cases, how do people know you do the big cases? If you don't have enough customer reviews, then you can't rank high enough for the big cases, right? You always want to tie it to the thing they're after. So if you do that, you'll make your life a whole bunch easier. And then, of course, you don't need access to all their stuff. Just show them, like, one keyword is enough. Show them, like, this is a keyword for something you really want. This is where you're ranking. And I'll tell you, this is a secret, by the way, for those of you guys who work with local businesses. Local businesses all hate their competitors and know them by name. So one of the things that you can do to really motivate people to action is tell them the name of the person who is getting the business that they should be getting but are not, because they haven't solved this problem yet. That drives people crazy and will drive them to action. So hope that's helpful, Raul. You don't need access to any of their tools. Certainly not for like an audit. It doesn't need to be super detailed and super formal. Just show them one keyword, show them what they're trying to get, tie it to a result. You can do that in 30 seconds. It'll work much better. Toby, I hope I'm saying your name right. He says, what's the best outreach method for plastic surgeons? I'm going to give you guys a deeper insight into cold outreach in a world where essentially we all get cold pitched in our world like 10 to 100 times a day, every day. So firstly, when most people think of cold outreach, the questions I generally get asked about it, they imply that like cold outreach is like, it's basically essentially about a script. If you come up with the right script, then you will unlock the key to riches. And so people ask me like, what's the best message, what's the best script, and all these kind of variations of that same question. And I want you to think about outreach as relationships at scale. I'll never forget that Jamie Stenhouse showed his outreach process in its relationships at scales. So I'll tell you a few things that help relationships at scale, okay? One is you will get in the door easier the easier your offer is to say yes to, right? So one of the biggest keys of this whole leverage is, instead of thinking about message and perfect thing to say, just make your shit easy to buy. Second thing that'll make your life easier is understanding that, like, to break through with a real human being in this day and age, it's probably going to take multiple messages. And it's probably going to take multiple media, meaning this is why I like to focus on less but better agency lead generation. I go after like influencers in different industries. For those of you guys who've been following around following along in the 90-day challenge, that's essentially what I've been doing, is outreach with the heavy hitters, the people who have run the podcasts, run the conferences. I'm not trying to reach multiple people or gazillions of people, but the people I am trying to reach, I'm reaching across LinkedIn. I got their email. I'm friending them on Facebook. I'm following them on Instagram. Like, we're connecting 4 or 5 places, right? So that alone will change your outreach efforts, is focusing on who are the people who have all the money and spend it, or who are the people who control the flow of all that, in my case, like the influencers in the industry. So if you do that, you're going to make your life so much easier, because you're going to you'll be able to send less messages but better. Another thing that affects it, by the way, is, are you talking about them and their stuff, or you and your thing? I see this all the time. I call it naming your baby. Like, there's a huge difference between, Frankie, we can get you more sales, and Frankie, I want to sell your book beyond the agency box, right? Like, everybody's baby has a name. Their business has a name, the thing they're trying to do. So just naming it alone will make your outreach better, especially if you can personalize. Just that one detail will, again, like, it'll tighten it. And then there was a fifth thing I wanted to say about outreach is... I forget, so I guess it couldn't have been that important. But if you stick to those 4 things where you're actually like focused on having a good offer, contacting the right people, having multiple follow-ups across multiple media, the deeper idea behind it is people try and jump to automation and scale before they're fucking ready for it. It's like, I always say, effective before efficient. You want to get a process that's working and then scale the working process. Oh, the other thing Jamie Stenhouse full credit to him for this, is he said, I also comment on their stuff. It's not a one-way relationship where I'm just in their inbox pitching them. I'm giving them high fives for their posts and the things they're putting out there in the world. If you do that, what happens is you'll build relationships with those people much, much faster, and they'll pay attention to you a whole bunch more. But for the most part, it's not a magic script. And that's where most people go wrong, is because they're looking for this one perfect message that they're going to send that's going to get you all the monies. And it's like asking, what is the magic set of words that's going to always get you laid? It's a flawed question to begin with. There is no one magic script that's always going to get you laid. You have to try stuff. You have to build real relationships. If your goal is to have multiple relationships, then you have to like actually put yourself out there and like follow up and do things, right? So I want you guys to think about this more as relationship building. And the more that relationships are favorable to like easy to say yes to offers to collaborate, is when you follow up with them over multiple media, when you have multiple messages, you're kind of like positively persistent. And then, of course, like you also comment on their stuff, right? Like it's not just a one-way thing where you're trying to wrestle them down for the credit card, but you actually care about them as human beings. Your stuff will be a lot tighter if you do that. Our man Booze says, when testing ads for a small custom audience, do you prefer to stick to the same images or A/B test the copy and headline? Booze, I got an entirely different answer. I don't always mean to be contrarian, guys, but I feel contrarian sometimes. This is one of those examples. So one of those things, by the way, is for years, I followed all the conventional wisdom with Facebook ads. And this is having spent like, I don't know, probably $500,000 of my own money on Facebook ads, as well as millions of client money. And what I found is that everybody says you got to split test this. And so what I ended up doing, like the split test became work. I got to try all these different audiences and try all these images and try all this copy. And all I ended up with was a bunch of mediocre ads, and a lot of them, and a lot of stuff to manage. And one day I listened to a guy called Brad's Ads, who's no longer at least promoting, but he had some of the best ads that I'd ever seen. And they were all about less but better. And he said, I like to just come up with one great ad. I don't care about split testing and, inching 20% a day. I just want one fucking great ad that works. And so he started putting all his chips on one great ad. And what he found is he only had one split test to run at a time. Does this ad work? Yes or no? And I found that I can sometimes do like 2 or 3, but I never have more than like 3 good ideas at a time. And so I know everybody says you got to split test thing, and I think that's really good wisdom if you got an e-commerce store that's been around for 10 years and you got 1,000+ products and you want to split test them all. I think that's really great advice, to split test everything. I think if you're just trying to, like, in the beginning stages of getting an agency going, put all the chips on one great ad. And it doesn't matter whether it's a small or a big audience. A small audience, you'll have to like change it more frequently. But rather than trying to split test images and copies, just like one fucking great hook will do more damage than like 50 mediocre ads. I promise you, just try it. I'll tell you, the best Facebook ads I've ever written were like chilled out in nature with a notepad, and I just thought of like one great idea, and I wrote that one idea down, and then when I was back at the computer, I actually like clicked the buttons and ran the ad. And those are some of our best performing ads that have worked for the longest. We've had a lot of ads that crushed webinars over the years, and the secret to that for us was just in having one great ad. So I know everybody tells you got to split test everything, but I think that's a bunch of bullshit. Like, that's what you do when you're on like step 7 and you're optimizing. For most people, like, you need a really strong offer and a hook, and you can't like have a great offer if you're testing like 50 mediocre messages. Otherwise, like Facebook or YouTube or whatever place you're running ads becomes so much fucking work just to manage all your split tests that you're not on top of it, and you're optimizing before you've got something that's working. So I'm all for the one great ad method. The patented Frankie Finn one great ad. I'm telling you, you'll have better luck with one great ad. So try it and let me know how it goes. Nazish says, just had somebody ask me to do a trade with him, run free Facebook ads for him, and if I do a great job, he will introduce me to his clients who are in the same business. I have no clients right now. Should I take his offer? The answer to that question is no. And I'll tell you why, because we're actually, for those of you guys who have been paying attention to that, we have a course right now on revenue share deals. Rule number 1 of revenue share deals that makes it work is it's all about client selection. You have to choose the right people. And I'll tell you, the worst people to run revenue share deals for are people that suggest it to you, because usually it means they're so sick and tired of and bitter of like people making promises that didn't work for them. They're so sick of marketing companies, so they want you to take all the risk. And there's nothing wrong with you taking all the risk when it's calculated risk, meaning you understand, like, you have a deal that's probably going to work. But almost always those people have broken sales processes, broken systems that they haven't fixed over years, and they just blame marketing company after marketing company because they can't answer the phone or they can't close people on the phone and things like that. So when they suggest it is a hard and fast no. What you want to do is you want to be the one suggesting the deals, and you do this by hand selecting somebody who has an audience of people, has an offer that's working, has stuff they've sold to them, has a great reputation, and has some traction already in the industry. As revenue share deals work really well when essentially they're bringing all the pieces and they're just simply too busy to implement them. It's like they've got the sales team, they got the process, they got the stuff people want, they're great on delivery, but they're too busy to actually run their own campaigns. Those are the ones that work the best. But you generally don't want to do revenue share deal, because what will happen is if you choose the wrong person, you'll just do a bunch of shit for free and you won't get paid for it, and it'll be a lot of fucking work, and they'll still say, oh, it didn't work, and they'll half-ass implement it. As where if you choose the right person, you can often just send a couple of emails, make 10, 20, 30, sometimes even a lot more than that, but like in my case, typically 10 to 30 grand is like the more typical outcome. Nazish, we got a two-parter question here. I'm going to combine these two because I think they... Question number one, because they have a similar answer. Question number one says, I've heard that instead of Google Business, it is better to have your own website and associated email addresses, and you can warm them up and send as many cold emails as you want. Is this true? If then, could you please tell me which domain provider and web hosting service do you use? Is it GoDaddy good, or do you have any other option in mind? Thank you so much in advance. That's part one of the question. Part two is, I'm about to start my cold outreach campaign again. I'm so scared. I'm having thoughts like, what if it fails? What if nobody responds? What if all the money I've spent on leads, domains, email goes to waste? Did this happen to everyone? Is it just me? Some people say cold outreach doesn't really work. We should focus on inbound leads, but I'm just starting out. I do not live in the U.S., cannot approach my niche physically. I've taken a lot of courses, so technically I set, and my emails are tons better. I'm still shaking in my boots. Okay, I'm going to combine these, Nazish, into two parts. One is really part of your answer is a mindset thing. Anytime you try something new in business, in entrepreneurship, you are going to experience discomfort. Your discomfort, I would call fear of failure. What if this doesn't work? What if I look stupid? And by the way, that doesn't go away. 16 years later, I still have those kind of nagging voices in the background. You're going to look stupid. What does change is you recognize it just as a thought, and you just ignore it, and you go do the thing anyway, and you let data tell you whether or not it works. And you also understand that failure is not final, so it's okay to try stuff. And very often you think, I'm going to look stupid. Like, people have forgotten your email 5 seconds after it was sent. I get spam emails every day, unsolicited ones, and for the most part, that person could email me 2 days later, and I wouldn't remember it was the same person because, and I do this for a living, so I actually try and look at their emails just to see what they're doing and things like that. And I'll tell you, it's failure is not final, so don't make it such a big deal in your mind. In fact, everybody who's done something in life worthwhile has failed often 10 times as much as they've succeeded. Easily, by the way, my list of failures, my list of wins is very, very small in comparison to my list of failures. In fact, when I first started, I actually remember my first business, I got lucky and it worked. And we ended up selling it, and my second business was a complete crash, and I thought I had this Midas touch, and everything I would do would turn to gold, and I ended up failing miserably. I still consider it my worst failure in business because I could have tested it a lot smaller, but having said that, you're going to fail. So accept that, but failure, again, is not permanent. You get feedback from it, and it helps you get closer every single time. For real, don't make it a big deal. Don't make it a big deal to go talk to people and see how they're doing in their business. And also understand it's not really fucking about you. These businesses you're contacting don't give a fuck about you or anyone for the most part. They give a fuck about themselves and their own self-interest. So the best thing you can do is just spend more of your conversations listening, asking questions. It's really not about you at all. So don't make stuff about you that's not about you. Second thing is, you mentioned having to have your email, your servers, your websites, all this. I see this stuff all the time is where people say, you need all these things to get started in business. And I'm not saying any of them don't help, but I have a friend named Kat Howell. A lot of you guys will know her. She's a famous Facebook ads guru. She's very well known. I should say, I don't know if she's famous, but she's very well known in our industry. And I remember she told me her agency hit $300,000 per month, and then she added a website. Okay, so I'm not saying these things you're talking about these credibility factors excuse me, a lot of times people try and go for elements of scale before they've gotten like I call this get one pizza right. Okay, so there's a Gordon Ramsay episode of Kitchen Nightmares, and there's this guy who brings on and he runs a pizza place, and they make a lot of fucking mediocre pizzas, right? So they use frozen dough and frozen ingredients, and he just makes them, and the restaurant's losing money and nobody's happy. And when Gordon Ramsay comes in, he starts telling him the restaurant's name is Sebastian's, and he tells them, like, Sebastian's is going to franchise. Can you just imagine all over we're making Sebastian's pizza? And Gordon looks at him, he's like, we haven't even got one fucking pizza right, and you're already talking about franchising and shit like that. And he breaks it down, like, really step by step, like, let's just make one fucking pizza right. So how that translates to outreach is people think they're thinking about systems and scales, and I got to have all these email servers, and I got to have automation and bots and follow-up and go high-level sequences and all those things. And you're better off just starting out with one real conversation, which you don't need any fucking tool in the world to do other than just like Google and free shit, is like start connecting with people in your industry on LinkedIn or by email in your old-fashioned Gmail and like figure out who these people are and what they want in life and actually engage them in real conversations. And then once you have a process that's working, then add the elements of scale and email servers. But I see this, like, people are working on step 20 when they haven't got step 1 right. They haven't made one pizza right, and they're already concerned with, how am I going to do this at 27 restaurants? And it's like, no. Let's get people in this one restaurant that we have right now today first. And that's done so much more simpler. Like, one pizza is way more simple to make than 2,700. So, like, send one message to one person and get it right. Get it right over LinkedIn. Get it right over Gmail, or get it right if you're going to cold call them, but get that right, and then worry about the elements of scale. You want to be effective before efficient. I see people do this backwards all the time, and so they start, like, they build complexity into offers that don't fucking need them. Like, I see people where they'll send me their funnel, and they have a $7 thing and an upsell and a blah, 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 and then, like, 27 follow-ups, and I'm like, how many people have ever taken this offer? And they're like, 0. And I'm like, well, you need to fix that before you start adding fancy automation and upsells and blah, blah, blah. Like, let's just get one pizza right. Let's get one person to buy from, like, or let's get one quality conversation going. And so what you want to be doing is, like, actually just, like, reaching out to real human beings in a way, by the way, in the beginning, it's completely fucking unscalable. But that's not what you're after, is you're figuring out, like, what actually resonates with these people. Because I'll tell you, just like if I message a lawyer and say, I can get you a motorcycle case versus I can get you a car accident case versus I can get you a trucking accident case, those 3 messages will land differently. And I don't know that until I actually, like, start having real conversations with those people. And so don't worry about all the shit everybody says you have to do. Just line up one human being and in your industry who has a proven history of spending money and have a conversation with them as best you know how to do. I'm thinking about doing some stuff on this, by the way, for you guys, because I know a lot of you guys struggle with, like, how do I get conversations going with strangers on the internet. It's an art, but once you do it, you can, like, forever open up doors as often as you want them. And most people don't understand it. It's principle-based, and they're looking at tools and automations and things and not understanding the underlying principles. It'd be like, you know, like somebody who had never dated somebody in real life and didn't understand the nuances of dating and all that, and then you give them a phone app where they can all of a sudden message 500 people an hour. They're still going to do it poorly, right? So we want to get one pizza right. Like, it's such a key concept that I think not enough people really understand it. This is a great question, by the way. I've been looking forward to talking about this. Arsum asks, hey, Frankie, can you tell me how you were able to get people like Jay Abraham or Nicolas Kusmich on video interviews? What kind of ROI do you offer for showing up, sharing their golden nuggets with this community? Just curious to know your strategy in the outreach process. Okay, so the first thing is I do this mostly because it's fun, and I like talking to cool people about what for me is cool shit. So I know that's not really a strategy or a technique, but I think if you try and force yourself to have conversations in outreach randomly, you're, like, at least for me, I would struggle with that immensely. But if you guys are, like, really focused on who are people that would be really fun, Chet Holmes has a name for this. He calls them his Dream 100, just like coolest people you know in your industry and all that. And what I like to do is just, like, intentionally connect with those people. Now, I want you guys to think about this more as like networking, like you would do at a real life networking meeting. Like, hey, can you introduce me to so and so if that's available to you? Or hey, I watched a bunch of your stuff. So to give you an idea of like the real process of what it takes is I'm also like pleasantly persistent to the point of annoyance, but I just won't take no for an answer unless you tell me like leave me the fuck alone. So if like for example I've been pursuing Joe Dispenza for over 3 years now, and I just keep sending that guy stuff in the mail, and I'm just gonna keep sending it until he eventually responds, and I'm not like just not gonna give up on that journey. Just so you guys know. So for example, Jay Abraham. I actually just got the idea I wanted to interview Jay Abraham, and I messaged him and his team, and they said, we try and accommodate as many interview requests as we can. We'll let you know Jay's schedule, and it just kind of bounced around and didn't go anywhere. And I talked to a bunch of people on his staff, but was never able to book an interview. Before I had kids, Ilka and I were in Los Angeles, and some friend of ours were putting on a conference for like it's called City Gala, and they have these big celebrity parties where they raise money for charities. And one of the people that was there was Jay Abraham, and a friend of mine was having lunch with him. And I've been like, I've been trying to interview that guy for a year. And he said, hey, I'm supposed to give him a flash drive for his presentation. Why don't you just like come in with the flash drive and I'll introduce you? And so I started talking. I said, Jay, it's really interesting to meet somebody because I've listened to like, I don't know, 1,000 hours of your stuff. So like I feel like I know you. And I know you don't know me from anybody, but this is a cool experience. And I said, I want to interview you. And he said, I'd love to. And then he had his assistant book it on the spot. And once it was his idea, not mine, it happened in 5 minutes. So sometimes like when you're going after like really high level people, you have to be like annoyingly persistent. And just understand like they're busy. Like they got a lot of shit going on. They got a lot of requests for their time and their energy. People love being interviewed and talking about themselves, by the way. So I don't actually generally give them like it's not a bribe. I just say like I want to give you a platform to, and it's usually just a form of like my opening message is like, dude, I love you and I love your shit and I love to like talk with you about 30 minutes about your shit, and I got a group of people who would be interested in hearing from you. Having said that, you could do that with an audience of 0. When I started in the legal space, I knew 0 lawyers, and so I went to Google and I searched who are the biggest lawyers, and on that list, the number one guy was a personal injury lawyer named Morgan & Morgan. I called up the front desk at Morgan & Morgan and I said, hey, I love what you guys are doing over at Morgan & Morgan. You guys have built the biggest law firm in the country. I want to interview the head honcho, John Morgan. And they said, hold on a second. I waited and listened to the elevator music, and they said, how's July 17th at 2 p.m. or July 21st at 3 p.m. work for you? And I picked a time, and before I knew it, I had the head honcho on an interview. So people love being interviewed. It's not like you don't need an audience. There's no prerequisites other than just find cool people you like and talk to them. And we could talk in more detail about how to leverage that stuff. But honestly, it's just like intentionally connecting with cool people. And then sometimes it's really, really simple. Like in the case of Nicolas Kusmich, it was just like, dude, I've been following your stuff for years. I love it. I'd love for you to share it with my people. Are you interested in talking for a little bit? Most people love talking about themselves because they don't usually get to. Like most people in their world don't understand what they're doing. You guys can relate, by the way. Most of our family and friends have no idea what we do for a living. And even when you try and explain it to them, they don't get it. So when you have a platform of people that can like understand you and are like-minded, it's its own reward. So it's usually just like my messages are real simple. Like, dude, I really like you and I think you're cool and I'd love to interview you. And if they don't respond to that, I just do more of it, and I find more ways to get in. And I see sometimes if somebody can introduce me and things like that. So there's different ways I do it, but that's basically, like I said, it's kind of principle based. Josh says, how do you consistently convert leads? I'm a big believer in inbound versus outbound. What that means for me is I usually do my outbound to drive my inbound and so the way I do that is I like to have a longer sales cycle, personally, but where those people already know who I am, what I do, how much it costs, and why they'd want to work together before they initiate a conversation. So the overall number of sales leads is lower, but the quality is much higher, right? Like there were periods where I did what everybody said you got to do and have like 100 people booked for the month on my calendar, and you got a full calendar, and most of those people are like 3 out of 10 on working with you, and it's hard work closing them, and it's energetically draining. And even when you have salespeople, there's still challenges of managing salespeople and teams and things like that. And so what I started focusing on is more leverageable assets. And you guys like who are paying attention in the group notice that like there's a reason I make so many videos, because once it's out there, one video, like it's no extra work for me if 10,000 more people want to watch it. right? Because it's a leverageable asset. So the longer and longer I do this, I do more of my pre-selling with video and text and things like that that are leverageable. And we're using a variation of Dennis Yu's The Content Factory, which I'm a huge fan of Dennis and his work. So essentially combining ideas. I connect with influencers. We chop up their stuff into like smaller videos, and then we use the power of paid ads to amplify that. Then people discover our content, come to us, and they go, hey, you guys are those experts who do blah, blah, blah. And they're most of the way pre-sold when they get there. So the longer I do this, that's how we consistently convert leads, is with leverageable long-form content and the power of paid ads to amplify that content. So I hope that makes sense. I probably didn't do the best job explaining that, but that's the longer I do this, I find that to be the best methodology to convert leads into sales. Michael says, what webinar platform do you guys recommend? I want to host the landing page on my own site. Thanks, says Michael. Michael, I'm not currently running any webinars. You guys will see that when I do stuff, it's really gangster. I usually just record a video with a Google Doc, either using Zoom or Loom or Screencastify or something equivalent, just like a really, really basic stuff. And the reason I like this is because I can get out what I think are good ideas easier without having to have like overly polished slides and things like that. Just brain dump into a Google Doc, hit record, and talk it over. So having said that, like that's mostly what I do now. And it's amazing, actually, people generally prefer it to overly polished slides and PowerPoint presentations and these webinars where they take 45 fucking minutes to get to the point and you're 40 minutes in and they still haven't got to content. But having said that, the best platform I've used over the years is Stealth Seminar. Because Stealth Seminar, you can host it live and record it, and then you can deliver the same webinar as an evergreen over and over. And that's how we did a lot of our closing lawyer clients over the years, is using Stealth Seminar and just sending them to the same automated webinar over and over and over, and a percentage of people would just watch and book on our calendar. So I hope that's helpful, my man. Roshan says, the best project management software for full service agency. Notion has been good so far, but I think as the team grows, I'll need something better. I'll give you a couple answers, but I'll tell you, Roshan, it's less about the software. So I've seen people use them all. Asana, Go High Level, ClickUp, Trello, Monday. You mentioned Notion. I've seen a lot of the project management software that people use. And here's the truth of it. The best project management software is the one you're going to use. So for me, like, I'm really fucking stupid simple. Guys, if you like this video, you're also going to want to grab some free bonuses, which you can get at our website, Beyond Agency Profits. To make it easy for you, I've put the links to it in the description of this video, as well as pinned in the top comment. And we've got a couple of awesome things. This is what you'll get after you sign up. You get some of our best training, how we're closing clients over Loom videos, how we sometimes sign clients that is not a misprint for under $5 US, how to demonstrate your value in like amazing ways, trainings, how to have your clients write the best copy of your life, how we're closing without phone calls, campaigns that we've generated for clients that have done over $100,000, as well as scripts you can use to get conversations going with clients in under 10 minutes. All you got to simply do is go there, enter your name and email address, and then this is what you'll see on the other side. So if that's interesting to you, make sure to click the links below, and I will see you on the other side.